you. Hello, Silicon Valley Comic-Con. You guys having a good time? Dude, I'm having so much fun. I've already walked the floor in costume this morning. I was not, I was a Hellboy character. I was Hellboy, but a new Hellboy. We have some photos. I commissioned someone off the RPF. We will cover it. Yes, comic book Hellboy. But I will tell you, that's actually Hellboy's real leather duster. Woo! It was really fun, and I could not see a goddamn thing out of those eyes. It was literally like, put bubble wrap around your head and then try and walk. But it was awesome. I got recognized in about 8 seconds. Yeah. I'm going to have to come up with a new plan. We did a one-day build. We got a 60-second video of the sword that I'm holding because I did it based off a Mike Mignola comic book photo. Can we load that? Here it comes. Let's get started. I got lots of crap for this build for not wearing a dust mask while using Bondo. And the problem is that I need a certain amount of Bondo dust in my system. I think that is a proper demon impaled on the end of a Hellboy sword. All right, let's sign out. Let's cut it right. Thank you. I am going to take questions from the audience. I think we have microphones set up at the end of the aisles here. I just wanted to start by saying how awesome and freaking excited I am to have a Comic Con here in our own Bay Area backyard. Yeah, it's about time. So I just saw Woz and I told him count me in forever. I'm here every year. If you have a question, go ahead and line up at the microphones, and I'm just here to answer your questions. Whatever you want. If you want to talk about renovating your house or financial systems, I have no qualifications for that. Go ahead.
Well, my favorite Mythbuster was the elephant that you did during Shark Week. And I wondered if you tested it with sound. Because I was wondering with an elephant's large ears, if the squeak of the mouse had more effect than the sight of the mouse.
Or the sound a mouse would make when you hide it inside a large ball of dung.
Yes.
Those were very unhappy mice. They were trying to chew their way out.
Oh.
Right, we're all feeling sorry for lab mice at this point. You realize that. And that episode, The Elephants Are Afraid of Mice, was a total fluke. We never set out to do that, but we were in South Africa filming with the sharks in False Bay that leap all the way out of the water. And a storm kept us off the water for a few days, and that was crippling from a production standpoint. We had to get a certain amount of footage for going to South Africa, and that's when we thought, well, let's just go inland to this little nature preserve and shoot Elephants Are Afraid of Mice. We thought our biggest problem would be what happens when the elephant squishes the mice. Do we film the bloody spot? And it was amazing because the elephants did 2 separate times. Like they got up to the mouse and stopped and literally like tiptoed all the way around. I don't know about the sound. It's possible, but I don't. That's a good question.
Yeah. Thank you.
There was a long answer that didn't give an answer. Yes.
Hi, I was wondering if you're a cat person or a dog person.
I have owned cats before, but let's face it, cats are dicks. Look, I've also had some not very nice ex-girlfriends. I'm not equating the two, but I'm saying you could still have a fine time with a cat. They just don't care about you that much. And, after a certain number of times I've looked at their butthole, I understand it. No, I grew up, actually, my father was terribly allergic to pets. So he wasn't allergic to cats. And that was what we had growing up. We had a few cats, and then I had some when I was living in New York. But I never had a dog until 10 years ago, and my wife and I got Huxley, our dog, and then he was followed shortly after by Maggie, and I had no idea how good dog love really was. It eclipses cat love by every measure possible, as far as I'm concerned. It is a completely unconditional, uncomplicated love that they give, and I'm addicted to it. So I'm a dog person. Yes.
So you guys have done a lot of gun myths on Mythbusters, and I've been wondering if you've gotten what kind of feedback you've gotten from the gun community for really dispelling a lot of misnomers about firearms to the general world.
Yeah, I would love to add some to that about firearm safety.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, it was funny. The only direct feedback I've gotten, I went to a gun show here in San Jose a few years ago. And I decided just to wander in first thing in the morning just to see what the gun show was like. And it was a very interesting crowd because everyone recognized me, but in the gun show they were all like, "Hey, I recognize you, I'm not gonna bother you." like we're all in the same club. And the only two other places that has happened is Alaska and Texas. Besides that, it's been very interesting being so closely associated with firearms because, I feel at the same time, I feel two things at the same time. One, I appreciate the beauty of engineering of this device, and two, it is a terrifying and awful thing that it does. And I'm cognizant of that. You wouldn't believe, we cover it a bit, but you wouldn't believe the level of rigor we held to when operating them on set. I mean, every bullet was accounted for and where it moved was carefully regulated according to the best practices. And we tried to put that in the episodes because we want to show that we appreciate the engineering, but we're terrified of these things at the same time. I'm still not giving actual answers to these questions.
Hello. Oh, I'm shaking. Okay.
Hello.
I just want to say that, ever since I was small, my earliest memories are watching Mythbusters, and Mythbusters has introduced me to this amazing universe of nerd culture and so many friends. And I was wondering, since that was my spark and entrance into this amazing world, what was your spark? What introduced you to all this stuff?
A few things. There was Legos. The greatest toy ever invented. There was Star Wars, which came out when I was 10 years old. And then there was my parents. My father was a madman in the 60s. Can we bring up the house lights, by the way? I would like to see everybody. Let's try and maybe a little bit. If you can bring up the house lights, let me know. So my father was a madman in the advertising industry in the 60s, and then he dropped out of that because he couldn't stand the industry. And he raised us making animated spots for Sesame Street in the early 70s. And it wasn't lucrative. We struggled. My mom was a really good manager of our money and made the 3 or 4 checks a year he got work for our whole childhood. But the rest of the year he spent painting, actually fine art painting. And so I grew up with the example of someone who did what they needed to do what they needed to do. And as soon as I was old enough to control a single-edge razor blade, I was encouraged to make stuff and make my own toys. And I was really grateful to my parents for that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
What's the coolest thing you ever blowed up?
That's the best question I've ever had, by the way. Water heaters, full stop. There is nothing as satisfying as a water heater. Here's the thing. Most explosions happen so fast you barely have time to register them. It's like a quick smack, and then everything's different. And for us, the only enjoyment, the main enjoyment is watching it on the high speed afterwards. But a water heater, when it fails, it's a much relatively slower reaction. I mean, when an explosion happens, it's happening at like 10 to 15 times the speed of a bullet. It's ludicrous speed. But a water heater is just this, it's like a conflagration, and the thud lasts for a couple of seconds. It is really what the Bugs Bunny and Wile E. Coyote inside of each of us wants an explosion to feel like. That's why I like water heaters, because they satisfy what I believe it should feel like in person. I really wish you could experience it, and I hope you never do. Thanks.
So sometimes I see you riding around the mission on your one-wheeled skateboard.
Yes.
Can you explain how that works?
So that skateboard is made by One Wheel. They are a company in Santa Cruz, and those boards are handmade right here in San Jose, California. They are magnificent. They're my favorite mode of conveyance right now. And it is effectively a self-balancing skateboard. They've got a single large go-kart tire in the middle. Inside that tire is a super high torque multi-pole motor, and with some proprietary software that they wrote, and I think some that they licensed from the guys that made the self-balancing unicycle, which I also own a couple of. It's a very intuitive device. There was a little bit of a learning curve. I had a road rash on my back that I hid from my wife for a week because I was afraid she'd take away the skateboard. Because it's like, you're almost 50, you shouldn't have road rash like that. Yeah, I love that. Those guys told me that they've made several sales from people who've seen me riding around the mission.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Considering that you're good friends with director Guillermo del Toro, you made the mecha glove from scratch, you own the Hellboy sword, and you own a jar of angel tears. I was wondering, what's your favorite Guillermo del Toro prop from any of his movies? I know it's a hard question.
Oh, wow. I don't know if I could single it out to a specific prop. I mean, they're all so much of a piece. He let me make some detailed plans of the Shiftane glasses from Hellboy 2, which I think are so beautiful. But the designers that he hires, he gives them such wonderful reign to explore that universe and make these things that feel so foreign and yet so familiar at the same time. Recently, I was looking at the egg that Prince Nuwata uses to give birth to that creature, because I have some pictures. I have some close-up pictures of that from Bleak House. I was thinking about making one of those. I couldn't possibly single out a specific Hellboy prop. It's all of them. All of them. Can I choose all of them?
Yes, you could choose all of them.
Thanks.
Hi. Sorry.
Hi. Sorry.
Two things. First, after I ask my question, can I get in a picture with you?
If you walk by here, yes, we can make that work.
My question is, I've seen a lot of people give unnecessary hate to Mythbusters as a series, saying it's just an excuse for idiots to blow things up, and you should be ashamed to say, oh, we're educating people, and honestly, it makes me want to bitch slap them with my soldier arm. Obviously, you're being filmed by several people. If you could say anything to Mythbusters haters, what would it be?
Oh, everybody who... It's interesting. I mean, I tried not to read comments. I learned early on that Chris Hardwick's axiom that reading your own comments is cutting is totally true. I have seen a lot of that commentary. What I have seen immediately following that commentary is that the people who jump to our defense on forums like Metafilter or Reddit are working scientists. And they say, yeah, well, look, we fully admit that Mythbusters iterations are painfully small, and the rules of concision for television are such that the results are certainly questionable a good portion of the time, and so I will tell you, I don't stand by our results. I understand all of that. I stand by our methodologies. We really worked hard to build rigorous methodologies that if we had the time and to run 100 iterations, we would be able to say definitively, this is a publishable result. And there were a few times bullets fired up, sewer disaster with the fire that tossed the manhole covers, There's a few others that I think we absolutely did do rigorous, publishable science. And, you know, it's about what you're educating people to do. I think that the pedants of the world, and there seems to be a few of them on the internet,
Just a few.
just a few, they get angry because they think that we're somehow claiming that we are where it ends in terms of science education, and no, we're totally where it begins. And the fact is, we are idiots. We didn't know what the hell we were doing. We were a genuine experimentation show, and that was the story that we were telling about people solving their own curiosity. And we didn't set out to do that. We didn't set out to make a show that was educational. We never thought of the children. But at the same time, that story that we were telling, which is two weird guys with better than average building skills trying to satisfy their curiosity and their mutual dislike of each other, it's an honest story and one that I'm really proud we got to tell for so long.
Awesome.
Thanks. Yes, Captain Phasma.
You have inspired many teenagers throughout your career. What advice do you have for them?
Be yourself. And I mean a lot by that phrase. We live in this culture where we say things like follow your dreams. And I have certainly gotten to follow my dreams. My life has been an amazing journey, and I'm really grateful for it. And I had some tremendous privileges to do that. First of all, I'm white and upper middle class from New York State, and my parents could afford to pay my rent when I had a job I didn't like. Those are tremendous advantages that I had in order to find myself and find the thing that I wanted to do. I know many people who have done much more than I have in their careers from much rougher starts, and I'm in incredible awe of them. But one of the things I see that unifies people who are doing the thing that they want to do is that they know themselves. And when I say be yourself, I mean to be yourself is to know yourself and to know deeply just how full of crap and lazy we all really are deep inside. And to be honest about that. And when you're honest about it, it is something powerful happens. And you know, there's been times on Mythbusters when I have absolutely been embarrassed to wear a costume on the set because my crew is kind of snickering at me. But I remind myself that my job is to be honest about who I am. That's the only job of a communicator, ultimately. And that's the story that I'm interested in telling, so I'm willing to push past that discomfort. So be yourself. That's my advice.
Thank you.
Interpreters, am I talking too fast? A little bit. I'm sorry. Okay. I will slow down.
Hi, so first, as a science teacher, I would really like to thank you for all the great work you've done for science education. And then I would like to ask you, so as far as trying to inspire both kids and adults alike who are kind of apathetic towards science, what do you think is important to do to try to inspire them?
What was important for me, and I had two really great science teachers in my freshman and junior years of high school, was that I had two teachers who were willing to answer my questions, and they were willing to say they didn't know when I asked a question they genuinely didn't know. And the most powerful thing about science is that the end of every line of questions is, I don't know. Richard Feynman says when he was a kid, he was walking with his dad, and he noticed that as he pulled a wagon with a ball in it, the ball went to the back of the wagon. And he said, what is that? And his dad said, that's called inertia. And Feynman said, what's inertia? And his dad said, inertia is the name scientists give to the phenomenon of the ball moving to the back of the wagon. But truthfully, nobody knows. And Feynman said that woke him up to the idea that there was massive amounts of undiscovered territory that he could have access to just by thinking about it. And so when I got to, I remember specifically asking my earth science teacher, and this is so long ago, by the way, my science teacher would be sitting at lunch in his classroom grading papers while I sat there and asked questions. He would smoke in the classroom. I still remember Mr. Fair like French inhaling these menthol cigarettes as he's grading, and I'm saying, how come a candle flame pops when you hit it with your finger like that? Why does it pop? And he's like, well, it could be da-da-da. I was like, well, da-da-da. What's it? And then he was like, honestly, I have no idea. And I remember feeling so proud that I'd gotten a question he didn't know. Like, that was empowering.
Great,
Thanks.
thank you so much.
Hey, Adam, how are you?
Very good.
First of all, I just wish I know it's probably the best time, but I didn't quite make your previous panel, the Mars panel, and I was wondering how that went.
It was great. Andy Weir is a friend of mine and so wonderful to talk to about Mars, but we also got in a NASA Ames planetary scientist, Chris McKay, who was phenomenal. Really, really wonderful, talking about things that I didn't even realize about Mars, which is like, if we find life on Mars, what do we do then? Because we don't want to wipe it out with our life. Like, we're already pretty... We've already done a great job here, right? I hadn't realized that. I thought that's a really fascinating approach. So we got to some places in the conversation I didn't expect, and I learned a few things.
Fantastic. I remember several years ago, my family went on a vacation down south to LA, and we were actually lucky enough to visit NASA's JPL in Pasadena. And I have to say, that was incredible. I don't know if there was actually the actual Mars rover, or it was probably a replica. It was on display right there, his life-size model.
It's amazing.
I think it was maybe just a year or two before they actually launched the mission.
That's very cool.
So I was also wondering what kind of advice you might have for anyone particularly interested in that, in like those NASA's latest endeavors on Mars.
Goodness gracious. So you realize I have a high school diploma, right? Like, I took some package design classes at the School of Visual Arts. NASA's website, there you go. They list the job openings and the skill requirements for all the things that they want, and they want lots of people. I mean, this is the thing, is that people ask me, like, how do we get girls interested in science? And I go, ask girls. They're the most natural scientists I've ever met. Little girls, they're jailhouse lawyers. But what if... So yeah, you know, the thing is I don't know exactly how to do this mission, but it is the mission of my life, which is to help people understand that science isn't something that smart people do over there. Just guaranteed, there's a lot of smart people in science, but I said this a few weeks ago, and I'm going to hold to it. If you don't think you're able to be one of them, you're an idiot. Because we should consider science a vocation in this country, like plumbing or carpentry, because it really is. It's not magic, and it's not for geniuses only. It's for everybody. That's what I would hope people to take away from our show.
Thanks so much.
Thanks. I'm glad you brought up the house lights. Thank you very much.
Okay, so first of all, great job mentioning Lego. That was between Lego and Mythbusters. Those are the two things that got me into engineering. So I actually moved to the San Francisco area about a year ago. Where's the best place to get that really esoteric maker supplies?
Oh man, you want to go to Scrap. Do you know about Scrap? The San Francisco Unified School District's Materials Donation Center. I've been going there for 25 years. I actually bought an exploratorium exhibit they had in their storage years and years ago. I have the magnetite separator. If you dump sand from Ocean Beach into this, it will separate it out into silica sand and iron. Scrap is a wonderful, wonderful place, and they sell to artists and teachers. So it's a great place for teachers to get materials for classrooms to build stuff. And stuff is donated from all over the Bay Area. Lab glass and wood stock and steel chunks. And yeah, it's great. Look it up.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi.
Hello.
So obviously you're very big into space. You did the Mars panel earlier. My question is, one, if you were ever offered the chance to go to space, would you take it? And if so, what would be your biggest concern once in space? Because there's a lot of things that can go wrong, or just like, not just like with the, spaceship or anything like that, but, personally, not everybody is suited for space. So what's your personal concern?
Yes, I want to go to space. First of all, let's everyone in the world know I totally would love to be a civilian ambassador to space. Think I'm pretty good at talking. But I'm totally terrified of vomiting the whole time. So apparently there is a story about they sent a civilian up in the 80s. I can't remember who it was, but they sent a civilian congressperson or senator up.
Jake Garn. Barfin Jake Garn.
Right, Jay Gard, right? And he vomited so much that they called the most amount of vomiting that could happen in space the Gard Index. They named it after him. I'm afraid I'd beat it. I have a weak stomach. I rode the zero-G plane, and although we weren't allowed to show it in the Mythbusters episode, per our agreement, I totally threw up in that. In fact, at one point, I threw up in the barf bag, and then I looked down in it, and I realized, oh, there's nothing holding the vomit in this bag, except its inertia. I think I'll close it now. So yeah, I'm terrified of what the throwing up would be doing to me, but I totally go like that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hello,
why
Leah.
did Tori, Carrie, and Grant leave the show?
They left because of a contract negotiation with Discovery that I was not privy to, and I wished that they hadn't left the show. It was not my call.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Sorry to give such an... That's the worst answer to give a kid. Contract law and lawyers, kid. Have a good time. Sorry, go ahead.
What is your favorite duct tape myth?
Making the trebuchet and shooting some fireballs with it, which is, I don't know, did you see that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty freaking cool. And this was great. So we had done, 4 duct tape specials before, the boat and the island and the duct tape canyon and the bridge and all that stuff. And Jamie and I had pretty much agreed amongst ourselves, that's it. We've done them all. Stop asking us to do it. It's like Mentos and soda. We did it. It was great, but we're done. And then I started thinking, oh, wait, what if we made a trebuchet using only duct tape as the binder? And I started to really like it. So I came in and I was like, I might have a duct tape episode. And Jamie was like, and I said, a trebuchet. And he went, oh, that works.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's great to be here, Mr. Savage. Glad to see you. I want to say that I'm glad that your show came of age during the DVR time. It's really great to watch with the kids, stop it, and say, what do you think is going to happen, right? And then we can watch with all our interests and how things go. So
thank you.
You're welcome. So the question that I have is, there's all kinds of things that sometimes we don't see. And one of the things that I heard on the internet was you guys had an RFID episode that was ready to go and it got pulled. So is that true? Is that just an internet rumor? And I'd like to know, is my RFID safe, right?
No, your RFID isn't very safe.
Okay.
That I'm pretty sure about. I mean, I'm not a computer technician. I'm not a programmer, but I know enough about the protocol to know that, like a lot of security through obscurity executions by large corporations, it's shite. But yeah, that episode was pulled. Discovery. It was during this. So how do I say this? It always sounds like I am part of a conspiracy. I don't know how to deal with that. The fact is I wasn't in that meeting. I know what Grant and Tori and Carrie told me about being in the meeting when they thought they were talking to Texas Instruments, and then they were talking to the head counsel for Texas Instruments and several credit card companies. And that made it clear to Discovery that what we were doing was product testing. And that is an area that Discovery very much discouraged us from getting into. And it's understandable. Within the United States, this is a corporation that makes its money selling advertising. I don't begrudge them the model, but it's one of the reasons that Top Gear is such a great freaking show, because they could go on Top Gear and say, this car's a piece of crap, because it's genuinely public television. Mythbusters is not. It's a private corporation. So, we tried to do what tooth whitener works best, and that had to be changed to who had the whitest teeth, which turned out to be me, which was very strange. We did the fingerprint scanners. We busted the fingerprint scanner with the Xerox that I lit, and it made it through. And the company sued Discovery. And although Discovery fought back and we were able to air that episode, that really limited their willingness to do more things that delved into product testing.
So that show was ready to go and you guys couldn't air it.
That phone call happened at the beginning of the investigation into whether or not that would make a reasonable episode.
Got it. I was wondering if it might show up on Science. Thanks so much. Have a great day.
You're welcome. Hello.
Mr. Savage, thank you. I had a question about getting started. You've mentioned a few times that sewing and welding it's the same thing. It's joining planes under rules. I was wondering if there was a book or a video that you knew of that would help us get started doing that.
By the way, I can't even tell you how exciting it is to hear that quote said back to me, because
I love it.
it changed my life when I realized that. I really got my start building paper models. There was a set of books when I was a kid called The World at Your Feet by an architect named Alan Rose, who's become a friend acquaintance of mine. And he designed all these world landmarks in paper, and you bought this book, and it wasn't die cut, it wasn't punched out. You had to hand cut everything. Really meticulous, and you'd build a Taj Mahal that was this big, or a Chrysler Tower that was this big off the ground. Huge. And I built a dozen of those things, and most of my ability to picture builds in my head come from paper model construction. And again, paper, carpentry, welding, sewing, all the same thing. So I recommend building stuff out of paper. It's fantastic. If you want to see the ultimate, and I really still want to meet this guy someday. There's a guy here in the Bay Area who built a full 747 like this big out of manila folders. Search it. Search airplane manila folders and your mind will explode, because he has like working landing gear and the latches inside the doors are functional and every single chair can recline, and he built all of them. I'm in awe and jealous and a little angry about it. Paper models.
Awesome. The Savage Index doesn't sound too bad, by the way.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
Not used to microphones. Can I just say I'm really glad to hear that you watch Top Gear, but then I remember that you drive a Prius, and that makes me really disappointed.
That's your opener?
Okay. Anyway, what is the biggest disaster that you've ever had behind the scenes filming Mythbusters?
Behind the scenes. Wondering how specific to get. The biggest disaster we had was Cary Grant and Tori were investigating a easily available material and its supposed explosive properties. What they found out was so explosive that we destroyed the footage and agreed never to say what we learned. Seriously. Like when DARPA just put out the request for civilians to design bombs that might be really hard for them to deal with, I wrote to them about this. Because I'm sure they already know about it. Many bomb techs do. It was absolutely terrifying. There you go.
All right. Thank you.
What myth would you want to do again?
There's none, in the last season, and leading up to the last season, we absolutely looked back through the back catalog to see, is there anyone that we could just make so much better by doing it again? And it sounds like I'm patting us on the back, but really, we had a hard time thinking of ones in which it wouldn't just be an aesthetic difference. There was an American Indian hunting myth that I wanted to do at the last season that we didn't have time to get to, which was if you want to hunt ducks, you float pumpkins in a duck pond and get the ducks used to the pumpkins. And then when you were hungry for duck, you put a pumpkin on your head and you can swim right up to them. And according to my friend who's a hunter, if you are part of their landscape, you can literally go up and grab them by the legs and pull them under, and the ducks next to them won't notice. No, of course we weren't going to do that on the show, but I'm sad that we never got to it. Thank you.
And then one other question. If you
Buffering.
Never mind.
Okay, thanks for your question. Are you seriously from Heartbeeps?
Spaceballs.
Spaceballs, okay, sorry. Joan Rivers, right.
And by the way, I also drive a Prius, and they're awesome.
And by the way, my main car is a right-hand drive diesel Toyota Land Cruiser.
So now that the show is over, what projects are you doing now? Will Tested continue? What's coming next?
Tested's continuing full steam ahead. I shot 4 one-day builds in the last 2 weeks. Yeah. I'm having a blast. We're increasing our crew size. We are pushing our mission deeper into the space that I believe that making is the gateway drug to critical thinking. And that many things are made possible when you do that. So yes, lots more Tested. I'm working on other shows. I'm also working on taking some time and sort of sleeping in a little bit and chilling with my family.
Thank you.
Do I have time for 2 more questions? 2 more questions. Yes, sir.
What is your view on the current legal battle going on with encryption between the FBI and Apple?
The difficulty between the DOJ and Apple is it's fantastic that it is happening right now. I love that this debate is happening. I love that we're getting really into the weeds of why it's important. There was a Times article last weekend about the fact that the DOJ considered the case very specifically and was like, we want information off a terrorist's phone because they thought that would gather the public behind them. And the fact that it didn't makes me very happy to be in this country right now. To anyone who really understands that security, there is no such thing as a safe back door. It's ludicrous, and it's not to be evangelical about it. It's just that's the way this stuff works. So I'm really excited. And if you want some good reading, I'm a bit of a legal geek, so I tend to read the actual briefs. Apple's latest response to the DOJ is so much fun to read because it is. I can't get that off color in my description of it, but it is watching them pimp slap the DOJ's legal team repeatedly. It's just read it all the way through. It's wonderful. Thank you for asking.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Last question.
Hi, my name's Carter. I'm also a twin. My twin's over there.
I have a twin over here somewhere. I mean, my son is a twin.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
The show aired the year I was born. I've been watching it since I don't even know when. I was very sad to see it go. But it made me start building things. Like if you go into my house, I have just a multitude of wood, cardboard, and duct tape, just things just lying around in my room. It's crazy. What do you have tips for what to do with that?
What you do, I say that, corrugated cardboard and duct tape are about the most basic set of building materials there are. And it was my first, those were my first construction materials. I built a suit of armor out of cardboard. I made a man who sat on my front porch and freaked my neighbors out. I made a spaceship in my parents' guest room closet. I actually just did I spoke at TED a few weeks ago, and I talked deeply about corrugated cardboard. The thing to me is, here's something about corrugated cardboard that you might not know. The art store will sell you pristine sheets of it. Oh, yeah. Right, and it's like a couple bucks a sheet, and it's like 24 by 36. I discovered this because I was in high school, freshman in high school, in the art class that built something out of corrugated cardboard, and my dad said, let's go to the art store. And we went to the art store, and he bought me these beautiful virgin sheets of cardboard. And I was supposed to make one thing for the assignment. I made 14. I made the MTV logo. I made an electric guitar. I made a record player that looked like you'd taken a record player and spray painted it brown. Working with that stuff, working with the corrugation, peeling off half of it. Elmer's glue and corrugated cardboard also are a match made in heaven. They are forever. And relatively archival. You can actually buy archival white glue, and then what you've made will last until it gets rainy. Good luck. I really appreciate the fact that Mythbusters seems to have inspired some of your building, and more power to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You guys, thank you so much for all your amazing questions. I'm sorry for the folks that I didn't get to. I love you guys. I will see you next year here. Thank you so much.